About 2 weeks ago, BeamNG dropped another big update, 0.37, Indulge The Luxury. Along with a brand new vehicle and some fresh props for creative destruction, the update also brought new scenarios, built around both classic cars and the latest edition. And as always, speedrunners didn't waste a second, they're already pulling off runs so wild, they look straight up cheated. So sit back, relax, and let me show you how speedrunners completely tore apart the new scenarios in BeamNG. In total, this update brought 4 brand new scenarios and 1 overhauled one, a remaster if you will. Each plays out differently with its own tricks to learn, but the big theme across all of them is RNG. BeamNG's physics and damage models play a huge role here, but interestingly, RNG isn't everything. In some cases, it can even be used to gain speed, or skipped entirely. What really matters is tactics, precision, and a solid understanding of BeamNG's physics. That's the key to beat every single new scenario as fast as possible. So let's jump in and start with one of the less RNG heavy scenarios, platform jump. This particular scenario has been in the game ever since Jungle Rock Island was added, so about 10 years. And when something sticks around that long, updates and fixes are inevitable. Over time it's been moved, the car has changed several times, and now, with the new patch, it's finally been overhauled. Honestly, it's 9 out of 10 remaster, fixing almost every little issue the scenario had before, except one. It's the reason this update don't have max score. Exploding tires when clipping into metal platforms was a major issue in every iteration of this challenge, and sadly, it is still causing troubles to this day. But even with this, Remake brought us new vehicle, an overcharged Hirochi Orata, and additional obstacles, trampolines. It all comes down to precise lines, speed, and cutting RNG out of the run. At first glance, the idea of the track is obvious. Use the car's superior suspension to keep control after jumps and drop downs. Land on trampolines, but watch your speed, because they can launch you into an uncontrollable jump that usually means restart. The real problem are the first and last trampolines. Without slowing down, the first one often causes loss of control or a barrel roll, while the third is pure RNG. Sometimes you land perfectly in the finish, other times you fly way too high and lose precious seconds. But for speedrunners, RNG isn't an option, and they figured out how to skip both of those jumps. The first skip is only possible thanks to the car's insane acceleration and the way the track is laid out. After the opening jump, just turn left and jump again. It's not as easy as it looks, but it saves a ton of time. The second skip is much simpler. Instead of gambling on the trampoline, why not just jump straight to the rod and remove RNG entirely? That's exactly what they did. And with these skips, plus a perfect control through corners, Serzari set the current world record at 21.995 seconds. That was only the first out of 5, and already RNG is showing its face all over the scenario. Up next is a trial with little less chance involved, but way more obnoxious, featuring the car that gave this patch its name, the Gavril Grand Marshal Limousine. It's called Very Important Parking, and the idea is rather simple. Drive a limo through narrow corridors and park it a few times. In reality though, this scenario had 3 major problems: the camera, the stops, and clipping issues. Because the limo is massive and the indoor spaces are tiny, the camera constantly clips into random ceiling objects and blocks your view. Perspective is another headache. After years of driving normal-sized cars in BeamNG, suddenly handling a stretch limo feels completely alien. The bigger issue, however, is stops. The margin for error on them is tiny. They are basically the limo version of the infamous bus routes in Italy, and everyone hates those. The last big problem is clipping. For some reason, limo especially loves getting clipped into structures on this map, especially columns, and that leads to nasty restarts. Still, speedrunners gave it their all and pushed this scenario pretty far, introducing several small time skips with intentional column hits to initiate power slides. Sadly, this is double-edged sword. Depending on amount of bend on the limo, those pesky stops might stop working completely. There is definitely more time to save, especially with how RNG stops can feel. But for now, the world record sits at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. That was just a relaxing warm-up. Now it's time for a real challenge. Since this patch also introduced an update to many default tools of destruction, it was obvious some of the new scenarios would include them. And I've even heard rumors that speedrunners were kept in mind when these missions were designed. Is that true? Well, you'll find out in a minute. Time to look at one of the hardest skill-based scenarios to speedrun in all of BeamNG. Turnstile Trial. I know what you are thinking. Sure, it looks cramped and pretty difficult, but it's the D series, it can handle anything. And you'd be right, except for one problem: the tiny steel barrel that has to be delivered to the finish. It's not strapped down at all, which means one wrong move and it goes flying. You have to control your speed and constantly find ways to soften the impact of jumps and elevation changes. At normal pace, it doesn't sound too bad, except maybe for the pipe section and the final jump. But speedrunning this scenario is pure unfiltered pain. One mistake, one bump, and even the best run get ruined. Yet somehow speedrunners managed to pull off some insane performance here. With near perfect line through every obstacle, Serzari put together an outstanding run. 31.427 seconds. Honestly, I don't know if anyone can beat that without hundreds of attempts. Another example of hard skill-based map is the Blender Bowl. I know, how can that be skill-based? Trust me, it is. It's all about tactics. The idea behind this scenario is simple. You've got a tough but heavy vehicle and a bunch of randomly moving flails that will smack it around. Your job is to collect 8 markers scattered across the field. Oh, and just for fun, the devs threw in giant footballs everywhere. They don't do much, but they can slow your pace a little. The real problem is the vehicle's weak spots. Yeah, it's tanky, but a few precise hits to the front will destroy the engine, and any unlucky hit to the wheel is basically an instant game over. That said, hits from the back or the sides can actually fling the truck forward, giving you free momentum, which is huge for such a heavy beast. Now let's strategize. Looking from the top view, the obvious pattern is clear. Drive left, grab the safe markers that are out of flail's range, then push through the middle. It's consistent, it works, and it can land you solid times, sub 40 seconds or so. But it's nothing compared to what the top runners pull off. By going right from the start and praying for better RNG with the flails, it's possible to grab the first 4 markers straight through the middle, then do the same on the other side. More often than not, it feels like a coin flip, but setup still matters. The manual shifting is absolutely mandatory. That's how Serzari managed a blazing sub 20-second run, 18.604 seconds. And even that isn't close to the limit. It will be pushed further, sooner or later. It's finally time to look at a scenario that honestly makes me doubt the devs had speedrunners in mind. Grinder Grand Prix. This one's got issues. First off, it's an AI race in close quarters. These opponents are already pretty bad on open tracks, but when you shove them into narrow turns with random machinery swinging around, it's chaos. Pure RNG. Half the time they'll ram straight into you or completely block a turnaround. Second, the vehicle itself is complete trash. One wrong hit and the engine's gone. The same goes for the axles. Combine that fragility with the other racers on this track and yeah, you're looking at a lot of forced restarts. But the biggest problem is the flails. They take every bad aspect of this map and crank it up to 120%. They're random, can't get stuck, and they change directions instantly. There is no predicting them. Worst part is that if you get hit once, your car isn't simply damaged or slowed. Most of the time, it's obliterated. Now multiply all of that by 3 laps. What you end up with is complete madness, a challenge where finishing once isn't just hard. It's basically down to pure luck. But BeamNG speedrunners are determined, and this scenario is the perfect place to prove it. After all, finishing this little race is pretty easy if you just go really slow. How hard could it be to go fast, right? Well, turns out very hard. Mainly because of the flails, but other racers don't make life any easier either. Speedrunners did find one clever skip right away, a small but surprisingly effective shortcut, going backwards at the start. Why? Because of the car's starting position, overtaking other drivers immediately is almost impossible, which usually leads to chaos on the first 180-degree turn. So instead of fighting for space, you just skip the mess entirely. And believe it or not, this trick has another benefit. Cover from the flails. You can basically use the first opponent as a makeshift shield, and if the flail swings the right way, it will destroy one of the AI cars for you. After that though, it's all in the hands of luck. Sure, you can save time with clean driving and smooth drifts, but eventually a flail will catch you, and when that happens on the last straight, it's painful. One runner even got incredibly lucky, but despite that, their time still suffered, thanks to a giant roadblock of AI cars stuck in the middle of the track. Without that blunder, the record would have been even stronger. For now though, 50.45 stands supreme. And that was all of them. Looking back, it honestly feels like the devs did have speedrunners in mind when making these challenges. Each scenario brings its own type of difficulty, from strategy and prediction to control and precision. These things are practically built to be raced. Yet, with all the spinners and flail RNG, sometimes it feels more like a cheap way to ruin a run. But what do you think? Were these scenarios really designed with speedrunners in mind? Or are we just doing what we always do, breaking stuff for fun? Let me know, I'm curious to hear your opinion. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into BeamNG's new scenarios, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and hit a bell so you don't miss the next one. I've got plenty more speedrun oriented videos coming up, and trust me, you don't wanna miss them. See you in the next one.